The furnace blazed so hot that the soldiers who threw them in were instantly killed by the heat. 3 young men, tied up and fully clothed, tumbled through the air into flames 7 times hotter than normal. The king, who ordered their execution, watched in horror, expecting to see them burn to ashes in seconds. But when he looked into the fire, his eyes went wide with shock. Not only were the 3 men walking around completely unharmed, there was a 4th person in there with them. How could anyone survive being thrown into a furnace that was hot enough to kill people just standing near it? Well, let's find out. Today we're diving into one of the most amazing stories in the entire Bible. The story of 3 brave friends named Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who faced the scariest test of faith you could ever imagine. Now, to understand this incredible story, we need to go back to the mighty kingdom of Babylon. Remember King Nebuchadnezzar? He was the most powerful king in the world at that time, the ruler of a massive empire. One day, King Nebuchadnezzar had a wild idea. He ordered his workers to build a gigantic golden statue, 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. That's as tall as a 9-story building. Can you imagine? This gleaming statue towered over everything, sparkling in the sunlight. Then the king sent out a command to every single person in his kingdom. When you hear the music play, the horns, flutes, lyres, and all the instruments, you must bow down and worship this golden statue. No exceptions. But here's where it gets serious, my little adventurers. The king added one more thing to his command. Anyone who refuses to bow down will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Now, living in Babylon at this time were 3 young men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 friends had been taken from their homeland when they were younger, but they'd worked their way up to become important officials in the kingdom. They were smart, hardworking, and respected. But more than anything else, these 3 friends loved God with all their hearts, and they remembered something very important. God's law said, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make idols or bow down to them." So when they heard about the king's command, they faced an impossible choice. Should they bow down to save their lives? Or should they stand up for what they believed in, even if it meant facing that terrible furnace? They made their decision. No matter what happened, they would not bow down to that statue. They would stay faithful to God, even if it cost them everything. The big day arrived. The massive crowd gathered in front of the golden statue. Officials, princes, governors, and people from every nation stood waiting. Then it happened. The sound of horns, flutes, lyres, harps, and pipes filled the air, and like a giant wave, everyone in the crowd dropped to their knees and bowed down to the golden statue. Everyone except 3. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood tall, their heads held high, while thousands of people bowed around them. They stood out like 3 trees in a field of grass. Some of the king's advisors noticed immediately. Their eyes narrowed with jealousy. They'd always been envious of how successful these 3 Jewish men had become. Now they saw their chance to get rid of them. They rushed to King Nebuchadnezzar and said, "O king, live forever. You made a law that everyone must bow to the golden statue when the music plays or be thrown into the furnace. But there are 3 Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who ignored your command. They don't serve your gods or worship your statue." King Nebuchadnezzar was furious, his face twisted with rage. How dare they defy his command? These men he'd trusted and given important positions. "Bring them to me!" he roared. Guards dragged Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego before the king. But notice something amazing, my little adventurers. They weren't trembling or crying. They walked in with courage and peace. The king tried to give them one more chance. He said, "Is it true that you refuse to worship my statue? I'll give you another opportunity. When you hear the music, bow down. But if you don't," his voice dropped to a threatening whisper, "you'll be thrown into the blazing furnace. And what God will be able to rescue you from my power?" This was it, the moment of truth. Would they give in to save their lives? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego looked the king straight in the eye and said something absolutely incredible. "O King Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to defend ourselves. If we're thrown into the furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it. He can rescue us from your power. But even if he doesn't, listen carefully, Your Majesty, we still will not serve your gods or worship your golden statue." Do you hear what they just said? They told the king, "We trust God completely. We believe he can save us. But even if he chooses not to, we're still not going to bow down." That's not just courage, that's faith. King Nebuchadnezzar's face turned purple with fury. He was so angry that he ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The flames roared and twisted, so intense that the air around it shimmered with heat. He commanded his strongest soldiers, "Tie them up and throw them into the furnace now." The soldiers bound Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego with ropes. They still had their robes, tunics, and turbans on. They were fully dressed. The soldiers grabbed them and marched toward the furnace. But here's something terrible, my little adventurers. The furnace was so incredibly hot that when the soldiers got close enough to throw the 3 friends in, the flames killed the soldiers instantly. That's how dangerous this moment was. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego tumbled into the fire, falling into the blazing flames, still tied up. King Nebuchadnezzar sat watching, probably satisfied that his order had been carried out. But then, something made him leap to his feet in shock. "Wait!" he shouted to his advisors. "Didn't we throw 3 men bound up into the fire?" "Absolutely, Your Majesty," they replied nervously. The king's voice shook as he said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire. They're completely unharmed. The ropes have burned off, but they're not even singed. And the 4th one, he looks like a son of the gods." God had sent an angel, many believe it was Jesus himself before he was born on earth, to protect his faithful servants. While flames that could kill soldiers instantly raged around them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked peacefully in the fire, talking with this heavenly being. King Nebuchadnezzar rushed as close as he could get to the furnace door. "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." And out they walked. Everyone, the satraps, prefects, governors, and all the king's advisors, crowded around them in absolute amazement. The fire hadn't hurt them at all. Their hair wasn't singed. Their robes weren't scorched. They didn't even smell like smoke. The only things that burned in that furnace were the ropes that had tied them up. God had set them free. King Nebuchadnezzar's heart was completely changed. He said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel and rescued his servants who trusted in him." They were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. The king then made a new decree protecting anyone who worshiped the one true God, and he promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to even higher positions in Babylon. So, my little adventurers, what can we learn from this amazing true story? First lesson: real faith means trusting God, even when things look impossible. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't know for certain that God would save them from the fire, but they trusted him anyway. When you face scary situations, maybe a hard test at school, a friendship problem, or something that makes you worried, remember that God is with you. You can trust him even when you can't see how things will work out. Second lesson: standing up for what's right is more important than fitting in. It would have been so much easier for these 3 friends to just bow down like everyone else. But they chose to stand firm in their beliefs, even though they were the only ones. When your friends want you to do something wrong, or when everyone around you is making bad choices, Remember these three brave young men. It's okay to stand alone when you're standing with God. Third lesson, God is always with you, especially in your hardest moments. Did you notice? God didn't stop them from being thrown into the furnace, but He went into the furnace with them. Sometimes God doesn't take away our problems, but He promises to walk through them with us. You're never alone, no matter how hot the fire feels. The Bible tells us in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 2, "When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." So remember, my little adventurers, be brave like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Stand up for what you believe in. Trust God even when things seem impossible. And know that God is always with you, no matter what fiery furnace you might face. If this story encouraged you, smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another amazing Bible adventure. Share this video with a friend who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Until next time, keep being brave, keep trusting God, and keep shining your light for Him. God bless you, my little adventurers.